The result of my painful seeking was approximately that which I have since set down in the Profession of Faith of the Savoyard Vicar, a work vilely prostituted and profaned among the present generation, but which may one day make a revolution among men, if good sense and good faith are ever reborn among them. Since then, having remained content with the principles I had adopted after such a long and reflective meditation, I have made them the immovable rule of my conduct and faith, without bothering myself any longer about the objections I had not been able to resolve, or about those I had not been able to foresee, and which presented themselves anew to my mind from time to time. They sometimes bothered me, but never shook me. I have always said to myself, those are all only metaphysical quibbles and subtleties, which have no weight next to the fundamental principles adopted by my reason, confirmed by my heart, and which all carry the seal of inner assent in the silence of the passions. In matters so much greater than human understanding, will an objection I cannot resolve overturn a whole body of doctrines so solid, so well integrated, and formed with so much meditation and care, so very suited to my reason, to my heart, to my whole being, and reinforced by the inner assent I feel to be lacking in all the others? No. Vain arguments will never destroy the congruity I perceive between my immortal nature, the constitution of this world, and the physical order I see reigning in it. In the corresponding moral order, whose arrangement I discovered by my seeking, I find the supports I need to endure the miseries of my life. In any other arrangement, I would live without resource and die without hope. I would be the most unhappy of creatures. Let me hold, then, to this one, which alone suffices to render me happy in spite of fortune and men. Do not this deliberation and the conclusion I drew from it seem to have been dictated by heaven itself to prepare me for the fate which awaited me and to enable me to endure it? What would I have become? What would I yet become during the fruitful periods of anguish which awaited me and the unbelievable situation I am reduced to for the rest of my life, if having remained without a refuge where I could escape from my implacable persecutors without compensation for the disgrace to which they submit me in this world, and without hope of ever obtaining the justice due me? I had seen myself completely surrendered up to the most horrible lot any mortal has undergone on earth. While serene in my innocence, I imagined only esteem and benevolence for me among men, and while my open and confiding heart poured itself out to friends and brothers, traitors silently entwined me with nets forged in the pits of hell. Taken unawares by the most unforeseen of all misfortune, and those most terrible for a proud soul, dragged through the mud without ever knowing by whom or for what, thrust into an abyss of ignominy, enveloped in horrible darkness, through which I discerned only sinister objects, I was floored by the first surprise attack, and I would never have recovered from the despondency this unforeseen kind of misfortune cast me into had I not stored up reserves of strength ahead of time in order to pick myself up from my fall. Only after years of agitation, when my spirits were finally restored, and I began to be myself again, did I feel the worth of the resources I had stored up for adversity. Settled on all the things it was important for me to judge, I saw, when I compared my maxims to my situation, that I was given far more importance to the insane judgments of men and to the petty events of this short life than they possessed. Since this life is only a series of ordeals, it mattered little what these ordeals were, like provided the effect that they were destined for resulted from them, and consequently the greater, stronger, and more multiplied the ordeals, the more advantageous it was to know how to endure them. All of the most intense pains lose their strength for anyone who sees the great and sure compensation for them, and the certainty of this compensation was the principal fruit I had drawn out of my preceding meditations. It is true that in the midst of the innumerable outrages and immeasurable indignities by which I felt myself overwhelmed on all sides, intervals of worry and doubt occasionally arose to shake my hope and trouble my tranquillity. The powerful objections I had not been able to resolve then presented themselves to my mind more forcefully to finish striking me down precisely at those times when, overburdened by the weight of my fate, I was ready to give way to discouragement. Frequently, new arguments I heard came back to mind in support of those which had already tormented me. "Ah," I said to myself then, when my heart was constricting so as to suffocate me, "who will keep me from despair if my lot is so horrible that I no longer see anything but idle fancies in the consolations my reason furnished me, if thus, destroying its own work, it overturns the whole support of hope and confidence it had stored up for me in adversity? What kind of a support are illusions which delude me alone in the whole world? The whole present generation sees only errors and prejudices in the sentiments with which I alone nourish myself. It finds truth and evidence in the system opposed to mine. It even seems incapable of believing that I adopt my own in good faith, and although I give myself up to it wholeheartedly, even I find it has insurmountable difficulties which are impossible for me to resolve, but which do not prevent me from persisting in it. Am I then alone wise, alone enlightened, among mortals? To believe that this is the way things are, it is sufficient that they suit me. Question mark. Can I put enlightened trust in appearances which have nothing solid in the eyes of other men, and which would seem illusory even to me if my heart did not confirm my reason? Would it not have been better to engage my persecutors with equal weapons by adopting their maxims than to remain prey to their attacks because of the idle fancies of my own maxims, without acting to repulse them? I believe myself wise, but I am only a dupe, a victim and a martyr of a vain error. How many times in these moments of doubt and uncertainty was I ready to abandon myself to despair? If I had ever spent an entire month in this state, my life and I would have been done for. But although these crises used to occur quite frequently, they have always been short, and now, even though I am not yet completely free of them, they are so rare and so fleeting that they do not even have the strength to disturb my calm. They are light worries which affect my soul no more than a feather which falls into the river can alter the water's current. I felt that to put the same points I had previously settled into question all over again presupposed that I had new insights, a more formed judgment, or more zeal for the truth than at the same than at the time of my seeking, since none of these is or can aptly to my case apply to my case, since none of these is or can apply to my case, there could be no solid reason for me to prefer opinions which tempted me in a moment of overwhelming despair, but which would only augment my misery, to feelings adopted in the vigor of age, in complete maturity of mind, after the most reflective examination, and in times when the calm of my life left me no other dominant interest than that of knowing the truth. Today, when my heart is constricted from distress, my soul weighed down by vexations, my imagination terrified, and my head troubled by the many frightful mysteries which surround me. Today, when all my faculties, weakened by old age and anxieties, have lost all their spring, shall I wantonly deprive myself of all the resources I had stored up? Shall I place more trust in my declining reason, thereby making myself unjustly unhappy, than in my full and vigorous reason, thereby getting compensation for the evils I suffered without having deserved them? No. I am not wiser, more learned, or of better faith than when I settled all those great questions. I was not unaware then of the difficulties I allow myself to be troubled by today. Then they did not stop me, and if some new ones arise, which have not yet been perceived, they are the sophisms of a subtle metaphysics, which is unable to weigh the eternal truths admitted at all times by all wise men, recognized by all nations, and engraved on the human heart in indelible characters. While meditating about these matters, I knew the human understanding, circumscribed by the senses, could not embrace them in their full extent. I therefore limited myself to what was within my reach, without getting myself involved in what went beyond it. This decision was reasonable. I embraced it previously and held myself to it with the assent of my heart and of my reason. On what grounds would I renounce it today, when so many powerful reasons ought to keep me attached to it? What danger do I see in following it? What profit would I find in abandoning it? By adopting the doctrine of my persecutors, would I also adopt their morality? This rootless and fruitless morality, which they pompously display in books or in some striking scene on the stage, without any of it ever penetrating the heart or the reason? Or else this other secret and cruel morality, the inner doctrine of all of their initiates, for which the other only serves as a mask, which is the only one they follow in their conduct, and which they have so skillfully practiced with respect to me? This purely offensive morality is of no use or defense, and is good only for aggression. How would it be of use to me in the condition to which they have reduced me? My innocence alone sustains me in my misfortunes, and how much unhappier would I make myself if, ridding myself of this single but powerful resource, I substituted wickedness for it? Would I reach their level in the art of harming? And were I to succeed, from what evil would the one I might do them relieve me? I would lose my self-esteem and gain nothing in its place. Reasoning in this way with myself, I succeeded in no longer allowing myself to be shaken in my principles by captious arguments, by insoluble objections, or by difficulties which went beyond my reach and perhaps beyond that of the human mind. My own mind remains as firmly tempered as I was able to make it, and has become so well accustomed to resting there in the shelter of my conscience, that no foreign doctrine, old or new, can any longer move it or trouble my rest for an instant. Fallen into mental languor and heaviness, I have forgotten even the reasonings on which I grounded my belief and my maxims, but I will never forget the conclusions I drew from them with the approval of my conscience and of my reason, and I hold to them henceforth. Let all the philosophers come cavil in opposition. They will waste their time and labors. For the rest of my life, with regard to everything, I hold to the course I took when I was in more of a condition to choose well. Serene in this disposition, I find in it, along with self-contentment, the hope and the consolation I need in my situation. It is not possible that a solitude so complete, so permanent, so sad in itself, that the ever perceptible and ever active animosity of the whole present generation, and that the indignities this generation incessantly overwhelms me with, will not sometimes throw me into despondency. Faltering hope and discouraging doubts still return from time to time to trouble my soul and to fill it with sadness. At that moment, unable to perform the mental operations needed to reassure myself, I must recall my former resolutions, the cares, the attention, the heartfelt sincerity that I applied in forming them come back to my mind then and restore all of my confidence. Thus I refuse all new ideas as baleful errors, which have only a false appearance, and are good only to trouble my rest. Confined thus within the narrow sphere of my former knowledge, I do not share with Solon the happiness of being able to learn each day while growing old, and I even ought to keep myself from the dangerous pride of wanting to learn what I am henceforth unable to know well. But if few acquisitions remain for me to hope for in the way of useful insights, very important ones remain for me to make in the way of the virtues necessary for my condition. In that regard, it is time to endow and adorn my soul with learning it might carry away with it when, delivered from this body, which clouds and blinds it, and seeing truth without a veil, it will perceive the wretchedness of all the knowledge our false learned men are so vain about. It will bemoan the moments wasted in this life trying to acquire that knowledge. But patience, sweetness, resignation, integrity, and impartial justice are goods we carry away with ourselves, and with which we can perpetually endow ourselves, not fearing that even in death they would lose their worth for us. It is to this unique and useful study that I devote the rest of my old age. I will be happy if by the progress I make with myself I learn to leave life not better, for that is not possible, but more virtuous than I entered it.